There has been a recent development in the laws surrounding Crown land camping in Alberta. What was free of charge for many generations will now require a provincial wildlife identification number and a yearly fee to access these public lands for camping. With the somber thought of losing these truly free public lands to unnecessary bureaucracy, we loaded up our vintage 4Runner with good food and camping equipment and set out to explore as much of this cherished land as possible with the few days that we had. Our trip began in Calgary and would proceed south into the Crow's Nest Pass. Rain came in waves, sometimes coming down hard in short bursts and other times only sprinkling. We decided to do our best to not let poor weather dampen our appetite to explore. We had no idea what was in store for us only a few short hours away. After a few hours on the highway, we pulled off onto a back road that would eventually lead us to a Forest Service road. It was now getting late in the afternoon, and camp was on our minds. Rain turned to snow as we let pressure out of the tires and headed further into the backcountry. Days before our departure, I had been on our HEMA map system to plot our desired route. You can never be sure just what the real world holds while you plan in the comfort of your home, and unfortunately, we ran into a locked gate and were forced to turn around. It's always a good idea to have an alternate route in mind. Thankfully, this was not a major setback at this point in the trip. Spirits were high as we rolled into camp, despite the inclement weather conditions. Finding a secluded camp by a babbling brook was a perfect way to kickstart this trip. After dinner, we crawled up into our home away from home, tucked ourselves in, and drifted off to the sound of raindrops on canvas. I awoke with a startle to hear a loud sound and the feeling of the 4Runner shaking below us. My first thought was that an animal had wandered into camp and was investigating our vehicle below. As I poked my head out to see who the intruder was, my eyes were met with roughly a foot of snow that had fallen silently over the past 7 hours. The sound I heard was our awning buckling under all the weight of the heavy snow. This was not the start to the day that we were hoping for. Looks like we're getting snowed out here. Woke up to about 15 to 20 centimeters this morning at like 5 a.m. Didn't hear it all night, and woke up to a nice surprise. So we packed up. That was tough because everything was just covered in snow. Our awning, we left our awning out overnight, and it just collected so much snow that it bent one of the poles to a 90-degree angle, which is not ideal. So our awning is now broken. We're gonna have to either fix it or take it off or do something with that. But for now, just airing the tires back up, and then we're gonna get out of here. And I think we're gonna head back north up to Calgary area. Maybe even stop at home, dry off a little bit, because Allison and I are we're both soaked after packing up this morning. You can imagine how wet you'd get in a place like this when it's snowing. So we're gonna pack up, head home, and see what else we can make out of this trip. After further investigation, it was deemed that our awning was a total loss after 2 bent poles and stretched fabric. When we got home, we decided to go to our local 4-wheel drive shop and pick up a new one before heading back out again. In our experience, an awning can be a very valuable piece of equipment. After a few hours of sitting next to a heater, the tent was fully dry and ready to go back on the 4Runner for tomorrow's next adventure. After drying out the rest of our equipment overnight, we left Calgary early the next day to get a head start and set out once again to explore our wonderful public lands. This time, we decided to head north out of the city into warmer weather. Our plan today is to explore an area known as Hunter Valley Road, just north of Waiparis. With such a memorable trip so far, we plot our way down the winding dirt road and make camp by another one of Alberta's beautiful rivers. Hiking up a nearby hill takes us to a stunning lookout that gives us incredible views of the surrounding snow-capped mountain peaks to the south. The same mountains that unleashed the incredible amount of snow on us only the day before. The next morning, we loaded up our camping equipment after a strong cup of coffee, ready to hit the trails in search of nothing in particular, but to enjoy our time spent in the outdoors. From camp, we traverse south, finding ourselves on a rough trail with more mud than we would hope for. After a quick decision, we decide to save the mud for another day and attempt to find a new trail. Further along, we find ourselves wandering down a lonely Forest Service road leading us down to an ancient riverbed that has not seen the heavy flow of water in many years. These days, a smaller river known as the Ghost River still inhabits a small part of this massive riverbed. The river begins in the Front Ranges of the Rocky Mountains. These waters run through the areas of Cochrane and Calgary and ultimately lead into Hudson Bay. Having logged a few more hours in the Forerunner, and stumbling upon such an awesome trail, we had just enough time to find camp before losing the light to the setting sun. With rain starting to fall, we wrap up our trip with one last hot meal and a cold beer, and as the sun set low on the horizon to our west, we embrace our appreciation of this truly free public land.